My BFF Hyacinth and her soon-to-be daughter-in-law Mallory are on their way to the ranch for a meeting, but it's really just an excuse for us to get together, eat shrimp tacos, and drink a little wine. I always love it when they come over to the ranch. To go over the top of the shrimp tacos, I'm gonna throw together a really simple slaw. I've got some regular cabbage and some purple cabbage. And now I'll make the dressing, which is equally simple. I'm gonna start with about half a cup of mayonnaise and some milk. I always start with that creamy base, no matter what dressing I'm making. And then just sugar, vinegar, and cayenne. I like to add a little sweetness to the dressing. That really was the perfect amount of dressing. It's a good sign. I just have a couple of more things to add to the slaw. I'm just gonna use half a fresh jalapeno. Then I have a ton of cilantro. Now I just gotta toss it up. Make sure all of the cabbage is coated in the slaw. It's time to move on to the shrimp. I've got a skillet that I've been heating some vegetable oil in, and I'm just gonna go straight into the skillet with them. The shrimp are cooking away, so it's a good time to sprinkle on a little bit of cumin. I've got some red enchilada sauce. If you can find Mexican red sauce in a can, it is particularly tasty. Okay, now this skillet is so hot, the sauce is really gonna start bubbling up. And just because I can, I'm gonna drop in a little pat of butter just to add some extra richness and loveliness and awesomeness, and I could go on and on. So I'm gonna turn the heat down to simmer just so they keep warm. Okay, I just wrapped tortillas in a paper towel. I'm just gonna warm them up for about 40 seconds. Oh, your ears are here now?
Good. How's it
going? Great, hi.
Oh my gosh,
fantastic.
it does smell so good.
I am cooking you shrimp tacos, and I am so glad you showed up for our meeting.
Yeah, I love
Important things here.
I am very hungry. I want this meeting to begin.
Yes. Your pico de gallo is my absolute favorite.
yes.
So I'm actually gonna grab some avocado.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a glass of wine.
Got it?
Say no more.
You guys ready to go eat?
Absolutely.
Cheers. No journey through my history of food would be complete without pasta ai quattro formaggi. I'm probably not saying that right. Basically, it's pasta with 4 cheeses, and it is out of this world. I absolutely love it. Now, the original didn't have mushrooms in it, but I'm just changing it up a bit. I've been slicing some white button mushrooms really, really thin. I want them to cook really quickly. Now I've got some butter going in a pan, and I'll get the mushrooms right in. I'm just using regular white button mushrooms, but any kind of mushrooms will do. Now I'll just stir the mushrooms around in the butter and get them going. Now I want to give the pasta a little bit of a garlic flavor, so I'll just grate in 1 clove of peeled garlic. I love these little zesters, they're so handy. I'll just tap the garlic in. Stir it around. I'm gonna put in a little salt and pepper just to flavor the mushrooms. Now, the original dish used angel hair, and that's always what I use with this sauce. It's just perfect with all of those cheeses. So I'm gonna get it going. I've got a pot of water boiling. I love angel hair pasta because it hardly takes any time to cook, just a few minutes. I'll just let that sit and get going. Now, to the mushrooms, I want to add a little bit of extra flavor. So I'll just splash in a little white wine, not too much, probably just about 1/3 cup of wine. The mushrooms look great. They're nice and cooked. They've absorbed all the flavor of the garlic and the wine. So now I'll turn down the heat. And before I add the next ingredient, let me just state for the record, this is not a diet dish at all. It's very rich. And as such, I'm adding a cup of heavy cream. That is basically the base for the sauce of the pasta. Oh my gosh, cream and mushrooms. What a beautiful combination. Now, you can use half and half, but the cream is what the original had in it, and I like to stick to what I know. All right, the cream is already hot, So I'll grab the angel hair pasta. The only tricky thing about this pasta dish is that angel hair cooks in such a short amount of time, and you really want to act fast because if it gets overcooked, it just turns into a mushy mess. All right, the pasta goes into the cream, and if the cream isn't already hot, the pasta will take care of that. Now, before I even stir it, I'll add in the cheeses. The 4 cheeses are Fontina, just a beautiful creamy cheese, Parmesan, of course, the king of everything, and Romano, nice and sharp, and then goat cheese. Just soft goat cheese. It gives the sauce a nice tangy flavor. And I'll just crumble it right in. It's gonna melt in no time because the pasta is so hot. You wanna make me happy? Just make this for dinner for me any night of the week. I absolutely love it. Now, I'll just use the tongs to stir this around. The cheese is gonna melt. The cream is gonna coat each and every noodle. Now, I'm just gonna hope that all the pasta fits on the platter. Will you look at that masterpiece? Perfect. Look at those mushrooms in there. Okay, it's absolutely perfect the way it is, but I want to make it extra pretty. So I'll grab some parsley, just to sprinkle over the top. This is also delicious with a mix of herbs. Basil is particularly delicious. Chives are great. Pretty much anything you have would be delicious. I'll just sprinkle this over. All of a sudden, I'm 18 again. Lad and the kids have been up since 4 a.m. shipping cattle. It's long, dirty work, so as a treat, I'm rustling up a rib-sticking lunch of the kids' favorite dishes. For my little rancher Bryce, it's gotta be beef, so Salisbury steak in a tasty onion gravy seems like just the ticket. I just mixed together 1.5 pounds of ground beef, then added 1/2 cup of seasoned breadcrumbs to bind it all together. Then I added 2 teaspoons of dry mustard, a crumbled beef bouillon cube, 4 dashes of Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon of ketchup, and some salt and pepper. After that, I kneaded the mixture together, formed some oval patties. I've got some oil and butter in a hot pan, and I'll just get the patties going. Now, because the patties begin with ground beef, I want to make sure they're cooked all the way through. So I'm going to cook them for about 3 to 5 minutes on the first side. Now, after the patties are fried, I'll take them out of the pan and then I'll make a really yummy sauce. And that's what makes Salisbury steak so yummy. The patties are done. I took them out of the pan and then I drained off all the grease, didn't clean the pan, and I threw in a sliced onion, and I've been cooking that. It's nice and golden brown, so I'm gonna move into the sauce. I'll just pour 2 cups of beef broth right into the pan with the onions. You know, sometimes I call this gravy, but it's really not a gravy in the traditional sense of the word. It's more of a sauce, and the flavor of the patties really comes through. And then several dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Just eyeball it. And then for a little tang and sweetness, a tablespoon of ketchup. I'd say a heaping tablespoon. And then this is a strictly optional ingredient, but I like to add a little bit of seasoning and browning sauce into the pan. Ooh, that's gonna be nice and dark. It really doesn't do too much except it deepens the color, deepens the flavor a little bit. If you don't use it, it'll still be totally delicious. I'm gonna let that go a little bit. And to thicken it up a little, I'm going to mix some cornstarch with a little beef broth. Just enough to turn it into a paste. My mother-in-law always makes fun of me because I stir things with the measuring spoons I use, but I don't like to do dishes, so I'm in the habit of dirtying as few things as possible. All right, now I'm just gonna add a couple of tablespoons of the cornstarch mixture to the sauce. And then I'll let it cook for just a minute and see what it looks like. The cornstarch thickens the sauce, but it also makes it nice and glossy and really beautiful. If it needs more thickening, I can always add more. If the sauce gets too thick, you can splash in a little beef broth. It's real easy, you can't mess it up. Okay, this looks perfect. It's getting nice and thick. So I'm just gonna add a little salt and pepper. And it looks just so good, so pretty. You can give it a taste, adjust the seasonings as you want, but it looks just right. So now I'll just stick the patties right back into the pan, nudge them around into the sauce, and then this sauce is so wonderful. I want to spoon it over the tops of the patties. You know, the Salisbury steak, I remember, had really finely diced onions in the gravy. And if you didn't like onions, you were kind of out of luck. But I like to slice them big, and that way if a kid doesn't necessarily like onions, they can easily pick them off. All right, Salisbury steak is done. I'm just gonna let them simmer in the pan. For dinner tonight, I'm making chicken mozzarella pasta. It is one of my family's favorite dinners. It's hearty and delicious, and best of all, it takes no time at all to make. Now, I'm cooking some bite-sized chicken pieces. These are boneless, skinless breasts, and I cut them into pretty small pieces because that'll make them cook a little bit quicker. Sprinkle in some salt and pepper. Okay, now I'll let the chicken start to cook, and I'll get some of the other ingredients ready. I'm gonna dice up an onion. That's gonna go into the pan in just a minute. Okay, now I'll grab a couple of cloves of garlic. Garlic always makes anything a little bit more delicious. Okay, I got the onions and garlic all ready. Now the chicken, it looks like, is ready to come out. It's got some nice color on the outside. The good thing is the chicken doesn't have to be all the way cooked at this point. After I make the sauce, the chicken's gonna go back in and finish cooking, and that just makes the sauce even more delicious. Okay, got all the chicken out. Now I'll turn the heat down just a little bit, and I'll put the onions right into the pan with all that wonderful chicken flavor. I love making sauces like this where the meat goes into the pan first and then it just flavors everything you put in there after that. Okay, now I'll just stir around the onions and garlic. Okay, now it's time to put the pasta into the water and get it cooking. It's boiling and ready to go. I'm doing penne pasta, but of course you can do rigatoni, pretty much any kind of pasta you have in your pantry. And that's why I love pasta dishes. There are no rules, just use whatever you've got. Okay, now I'll let the pasta cook and I'll move on with the sauce. The onions and garlic are already starting to turn brown. Now part of what makes this dish so easy and so quick, I use really good quality marinara sauce right out of the jar. I use it all the time. It's a really delicious shortcut ingredient. Now, I do want it to have a little bit more of a liquidy texture, so I've got just the thing. I'll reach into my pasta pot, borrow a little of the hot water, and just put it right into the skillet. The pasta will never know it's gone. Now, to give it a little bit of a kick, I add some crushed red pepper flakes. Now, I'll just stir that in. The last thing to do is just add the chicken back into the sauce, and it's gonna simmer, finish cooking, make the sauce even more delicious. It already looks good. Okay, now to give it a little green, I'll mince up some parsley. Okay, I'll just mince up the parsley, sprinkle it right in. All right, now the sauce just has to simmer for about 7 to 8 minutes. Now, I've got one thing to add to the sauce, and it really elevates this dish from just a basic chicken marinara pasta, fresh mozzarella. Now, I'm cutting it into cubes, not very big pieces. I'll just cut it into sticks. They're about 1/2 inch square. I'll just sprinkle it right in. This mozzarella is a pretty soft cheese, so it's gonna soften really quickly. But I don't want it to totally melt. I still want it to stay in pretty nice chunks. It's just gonna take 2 to 3 minutes for the cheese to be perfect. All right, the pasta is done. I love these pasta pots with the built-in colander. Now I'll put it into a great big bowl. I love these huge pasta bowls. And then I'll drizzle the pasta with a little bit of olive oil. Now I like to put a nice layer of Parmesan shavings on the pasta before I put the sauce on. It just adds a nice layer of deliciousness. I'm just using a vegetable peeler. Okay, I think that's a good amount of Parmesan. Now give the sauce a stir. Ooh, the mozzarella is melting, it looks perfect. And I'm just gonna pour this right over the pasta. A lot faster than spooning it. Wow, and the cheese is gonna continue to soften. Okay, now I wanna add some green to the top and some flavor. So I've got some beautiful basil. Now I just stack up the leaves real roughly. I'm not trying to be precise here. This is a 16-minute meal after all. And I'll just roll them up and just slice them pretty thin. And with that, dinner is done and in 16 minutes flat. Beef noodle skillet. If there is one recipe I know will always be a hit, it's this one. I've just been cooking some onion and garlic in a little bit of butter, and the onions are getting nice and soft. So this is a good time to add the ground beef. Just a pound of ground chuck, and I'll add some salt and pepper. And then I'm gonna turn the heat up and just crumble this beef and cook it until it's totally browned. This recipe actually has a funny history. One time when the kids were all small, I said, let's go to the grocery store and you guys can pick whatever you want for me to make you for dinner. And you know what they picked? I'm not gonna name any names. They picked the box that comes with a seasoning packet and a bag of noodles. You know what I'm talking about. You add it to ground beef. So I've been trying to make a good homemade version of the box mix ever since. I think ground beef is one of the best proteins when it comes to budget-friendly cooking. If you have teenagers to cook for or a big family, you can buy packs of ground beef and it doesn't break the bank. Okay, that is totally browned. So I'm gonna add a good spoonful of tomato paste. The tomato paste just adds a little bit of richness to the sauce. So I'm just smushing it around on the skillet, mixing it in with the beef. And then remember that box product I told you about? One of the cool things about it is you put the noodles in without even cooking them first. So I'm putting egg noodles, 12 ounces, into the skillet. Now for the liquid, I'm gonna add about 2.5 cups of low sodium beef stock. And then I'll add a teaspoon of smoked paprika, a good squeeze of grainy brown mustard. Trust me, this is all gonna make sense before too long. A few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Then I'm gonna add a little more pepper because the noodles and the beef definitely need it. I'm gonna stir it, and then I want the noodles to have enough liquid to cook. So I'm gonna add some hot water, about a cup to start. And while it's cooking, if it looks like it needs more, I can splash in a little bit more. And then stir it and make sure all those spices are worked in. So I'm going to reduce the heat to low, and I'll put the lid on, and I'll just let it simmer for 12 minutes, stirring it a couple of times along the way. Okay. It's time for the big reveal. Let's see what happened in here. Oh, it looks wonderful. Now you can totally serve it as it is now. It's pretty much finished, but I like to add just a little bit of creaminess. So I'll add some sour cream, and how much you add is totally up to you. It just depends on how creamy you want things to get. And just a splash or two of cream. It's sort of a stroganoff idea, but more budget friendly. And then I like to chop up some chives and just sprinkle them over the top. They make it a little bit prettier, and they sure add some good flavor. All right, chives go on. It's nothing fancy, but boy, is it delicious.